Hello, you wonderful crypto people. How are you feeling? We are here with the latest episode of the Inside Crypto Show. Interviews and discussion with regular people like yourselves, or sometimes irregular people. Today we have Noam Levenson, founder of Narrow Straight Writing and writer extraordinaire. Definitely not a regular person, someone who I'm looking forward to talking to today, and someone I hope you guys enjoy listening to. As usual, we have the usual disclaimer. Anything said by either Noam or myself does not constitute financial advice. Our opinions are our own and are not to be connected with our employers. Please do your own research. Because it's just Noam today, so he can spend a little bit more time talking about his background and how he got into crypto and blockchain. Nice to have you on the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. I think I definitely would describe myself as an irregular person. Probably most of the people now in the NFT crypto space would be considered irregular. I came upon crypto very serendipitously in 2017. I was listening to podcasts. Somebody sent me a podcast on Ethereum. They said, you should listen to this. You should understand this. You know, in addition to being irregular, one of the common denominators for people in the space is that we like rabbit holes. So I lost myself down the crypto rabbit hole, and I'm still there. And, you know, Ethereum, understanding Bitcoin, understanding Ethereum, and 2017 was a very different space than we're looking at now. You know, I remember, it hurts me to say, but Ethereum was $300 when I looked at it, and Bitcoin was $1,500 a coin. But there was a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of interest, and in a lot of the same ways today, like not necessarily knowing where this is going or what are the connotations of what we're talking about, and a lot of price talk and a lot of speculation. And, you know, I ended up moving into a number of different roles. I helped found a venture capital fund that's still ongoing. I'm investing into crypto tech. And a big piece for me was I started writing and blogging about cryptocurrencies and blockchain. And what was important for me, and honestly, like my writing was a educational experience for me, but really trying to look at all of the different noise that was in the space, and this platform versus that platform, and Ethereum, and scaling, and fees, and like, what does this mean? What are we looking at? What is this? What are the implications of different blockchain throughputs and Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin, which is already an irrelevant debate. We've moved past that one, or Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. You know, there are so many of these, and it's very interesting for me to look. So many of these kind of paradigms that we were working with have already kind of been resolved. And, you know, I moved along. I worked with a few different companies, both full-time as well as on a freelance basis. And then about 6 months ago, I got very involved in the NFT space, really in a similar way as Ethereum. It captured my imagination. It captured my enthusiasm very quickly. And I got lost down that rabbit hole as well. And so, yeah, here I am. I'm actually working for a company called CryptoProof, running product there, building banking architecture for banks that are looking to interact with crypto holders. And then in my spare time, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Medium. I'm actually launching an NFT project soon called the Colony. And yeah, that's really about me. Excited to be here.
That's amazing. I mean, like all the stuff you're doing at the moment. I mean, how do you find time to put it all into 24 hours? So, you're one of those people who sleeps like 2 hours a day and still functions and speaks eloquently.
You know, I think that people love to say that they don't sleep a lot. I think it's kind of a dirty secret that, you know, everybody wants to say, yeah, you know, I'm going on 4 hours of sleep. And like, there are certainly nights where things get crammed in and sleep has to be sacrificed. But I find if I want to be in a state of flow and writing and inspired and kind to the people around me, sleep is very important. But yeah, finding time is the biggest challenge. And for me, it's really about creating structure and saying, like, this is what I'm focusing on now. I'm going to be fully present in this, and then I'm going to move to the next thing.
One more question before we move on to today's sort of questions we discussed before the show is for people who are interested in NFTs, you know, because you have some really cool NFTs. You have a cool NFT as your profile pic on Twitter, and that link will be down in the show notes for today as well. What would you suggest, or how would you advise people if they wanted to get into NFTs, like regular people? Maybe they just started their first Binance account or Coinbase account or KuCoin or wherever. I mean, how would you suggest for them to get into NFTs?
It's a great question. I would say you absolutely have to be on Twitter. That's where all of the the discussion is happening. It's where really any kind of insights that are important are being spoken about first. Talk to me honestly, like being able to kind of identify which Twitter accounts you should be following is important. I would also recommend probably not starting with Ethereum NFTs. I do think that the biggest possibility for profits are with NFTs. They're kind of the gold standard, but unless you have a decent amount of money to be spending, the gas fees will very much cut into your ability to make a profit or even acquire projects that interest you. And it's all about kind of getting a pulse on the industry. So buy one, jump in the Discord, feel what it's like, interact with founders. Like, we're very lucky that the space is pretty fresh and people are very open with information. They like helping new people. Yeah, and just start understanding the different kind of assets that NFT projects use today. The Discord, Twitter, airdrops, unique NFT interactions. Like, I think it's all about starting slowly, looking at the pieces individually and starting to kind of create a vision and an understanding, a broader understanding of the space.
Okay. I mean, still going on with NFTs, because I mean, that is still the latest hotness, despite it being 2022. Like, going back on looking at how you got into NFTs, how did you get into NFTs? What was the thing that sort of brought you into the space? Was it a person or a podcast, like you mentioned before, or a picture, or?
Yeah, it's funny. I was on Twitter and I honestly caught onto a thread of somebody saying that they had sold one of their CryptoPunks to buy NFTs in this new project. And I kind of had first started dabbling. There's different types of NFTs, and I'd started dabbling in more like one of one unique artwork by different artists, and just kind of forming some relationships with artists and looking at the different offerings in the space. And then I kind of came upon these PFP generative art projects, right, where you basically create a sequence of 5,000-10,000 images, and they have different rarities, and there's a certain gamification to it. I mean, he was talking about these projects and immediately captured my interest. I have to be honest, I lost a good amount of money on that first project. That's something that I think the best thing is to kind of take your time with things and just watch and kind of let it unfold. But that was really the thing that kind of sparked my interest.
I've had the same problem as well. I got into NFTs and I went on OpenSea and I'm like, oh, okay, let me try and buy this. I'm like, oh, NFT, $25 US, gas fees, $75 on Ethereum, of course. I'm like, The Asian in me was like, nope, you can't do that, man. That's triple the price. It's like, can't do it. So I ended up going with CNFTs, and that was pretty fun. And I want to get back into NFTs actually. I just haven't had the time. That's very cool. So we're going to take a step back before we talk about more about NFTs, and this becomes the NFT podcast. And you had a really cool question that I thought was wonderful. We haven't talked about this, despite this being the 32nd episode of our show. Please tell our audience, please tell the average people who listen to this podcast, what is Web 3.0?
Great. Definitely the hottest question on anybody's mind right now, and one that no one can fully answer. I think that we kind of have to take a step back and understand what Web 1.0 and Web 2.0 was. Web 1.0 is very much the beginning of this connectivity between computers, but it was very much siloed. So Harvard had its own network of computers and MIT had its own network, but they couldn't interact. And then along came these protocols, ITPS or HTTPS, and these various communication standards that allowed people to start interacting on a common network. And then all of a sudden, when we had that capacity, then different applications started developing. Email, communication protocols, the beginning of online gaming, and then obviously we hit social networks. And that's kind of where we are right now. We've made a lot of progress, and obviously the web is an enormous industry today. And Web 3.0 is really the next iteration of the web. And we're still figuring out in a lot of ways what that means. It's much more immersive, and it will probably be it will be augmented with AR and VR in some pretty powerful ways, which, I'm not a big fan of Facebook, but if you saw Mark Zuckerberg's kind of intro video to Meta, like, I think he gave a very good vision of what that kind of experience could be like. And, I think what's really interesting is to understand that cryptocurrency kind of got us through one of the biggest obstacles to Web 3.0, because Web 3.0 is really all about ownership of your assets, of your identity, of your interactions in this online space, right? We've had ourselves as avatars for already about 10 years now. If you have a Facebook profile, if you have an Instagram profile, it's not you, it's your curated, cultivated image of what you want the web to see, but you don't own it. There's many examples of people curating their YouTube personas and Instagram and then getting shut down, not having many ways to profit from those identities that they build. And so crypto came along and it gave us really two important features for Web 3.0. So it gave us a layer of financialization. So it allowed us to actually have a currency that could circulate, that you could own and attribute to your online persona. And it gave us the ability for digital ownership, which is really where NFTs have fit in. So it says like, great, we're going into this new web. We all know we've had many assets. We have pictures, we have videos, we have profiles, we have music, but now these are scarce. There's a scarcity to them and you can own them and you can transact with them. And, I think when people look at NFTs, and I hear it all day long, NFTs are stupid. And there's certainly a lot of craziness going on in the industry, but people's problem when they look at emerging technology is they root themselves in this world and in this paradigm, and they say, that doesn't make sense in this paradigm. The thing is that belongs to a different paradigm. So if you want to understand what's the value of that, you have to kind of imagine and understand what this new future paradigm is going to look like. And so if you imagine that the lines between the physical world and the virtual world are being more and more blurred, then having these digital ownership and being able to interact and not even needing credit cards, definitely not needing cash, being able to say, oh, this picture, it's virtual, but I own it. And here's my ownership of it. That is where we're starting to see all these different components of Web3 coming together.
Definitely. I totally agree. I mean, I was listening to a podcast about this yesterday, and they were talking about Web3, incidentally, another podcast, and NFTs and cryptocurrencies and stuff. And going on what you said, how do we, as people in the crypto sphere, sort of bridge paradigms between saying, hey, mom, dad, uncle, aunt, or cousin, you're thinking about this in this way, please try to think about this in other ways. Is it just as simple as a vocal thing, or do we wait? Is it time? We're waiting 1, 2, 3 years for things to sort of spin up and get more involved with people? I mean, what are we waiting for?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think we've hit that point with Bitcoin. Not many people take that much convincing on Bitcoin now. People might not fully understand it, but we've kind of passed this paradigm where people were crazy if they held Bitcoin. I think not being confrontational is an important element of it. Being able to I think NFTs have actually provided a really, really interesting avenue. During the holidays, we were seeing lots of people gifting NFTs to friends, to family, and being able to do that and actually allow somebody to hold it and look at it and interact with it. That's a big component to it. But ultimately, like that big wave of incoming users, like that relies on applications, right? Like you can go back to the early 90s or the late 80s and you could describe to somebody, hey, look, the internet's coming out, here's what it's going to be able to do, it's vision, but like until they created an email and they had somebody to email and they had people emailing them, it wasn't something that they were even interested in. So a lot of it comes to like creating those applications that bridge between Web 2.0 and 3.0 and making it easier for people to come on.
Okay. That totally makes sense as well. I mean, in your life, in your personal life, have you managed to convince sort of non-crypto people to get into crypto? Has it worked? And non-confrontation worked? Because I've tried both ways and it seemed to have not very successfully convinced anybody.
Yeah, in 2017, I did not have much success. I was much more of a rogue. Today, I think people have seen that there's money to be made and people are making money, and that starts drawing people in. It's always a little bit dangerous to be the person to say, hey, you should buy this, because no one knows what the price is going to do tomorrow. And you don't particularly want to be the one who loses your friends and family money. One of the big things in 2017 I did is I had a lot of people asking me, what is Bitcoin? What is crypto? How do I get involved? And so I wrote out a series of articles. I called them Bitcoin for Grandma, and just explaining Bitcoin in a very easy to understand way, practical applications for people. Yeah, but it's definitely a struggle.
Oh, are those Bitcoin for Grandma articles still online somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send them.
Please do. I mean, I'd love to literally send them to people's grandmas I know,
Oh, thank
plus
you.
my mama and stuff, because a lot of people ask me questions and I sort of do it in a very basic analogy, but I think a longer article would do people some good. And I think
Yeah.
Bitcoin for Grandma is like literally the best title ever. Let's move on. So, another thing that you told me about that I thought was very cool and very bullish in a sense, again, not financial advice, but maybe not even bullish, very positive for cryptocurrency. You said Bitcoin and Ethereum would be global currencies in 10 years. And is there a reason you've come to this conclusion?
Yeah, I think I've come to kind of this thesis on particularly Bitcoin and Ethereum, and understanding that the industry and people really do value decentralization. And even if they don't fully understand it, the market really does value decentralization. And it's much, much easier for a project, like the way that the web and this new financial layer of the web is being built is it's being built in layers. And we talk about it, right? We have L1s, we have L2s. I assume at a certain point we'll probably have L3s and L4s. L1 is like the bedrock. There's always a trade-off when you're talking about any kind of this technology. It's a trade-off between decentralization, efficiency, and security. And so, in my opinion, the web that will succeed is one that does not sacrifice efficiency for decentralization and security. And it has this strong foundation at the core of it. And then it layers on L2s or side chains or Lightning Network, which does sacrifice a level of security for efficiency. The thing is what a lot of projects have done, even take Solana, for example, is they have sacrificed for efficiency because they want to challenge Ethereum and Bitcoin on efficiency. And they say, we're more efficient. The problem is that Ethereum at a certain point and Bitcoin at a certain point will transition a lot of its activity to L2s, and they won't be more efficient anymore. And they will not have that bedrock of security at its foundation. And so when I look at this narrative behind Ethereum and Bitcoin, there's not been, I don't even think it's possible for a project to emerge to challenge Bitcoin in the way that it's emerged, right? To have basically an anonymous founder come out, release a protocol, no VC funding, no capital, no token distributions, fully open source, and it to be picked up and slowly grow organically to a point where it's extremely decentralized. You know, you can challenge the decentralization in terms of mining, but much more than any other token. And Ethereum in the same way, you know, it wasn't venture backed. It was basically Vitalik Buterin's brainchild, and he was able to kind of create this and create a very powerful community and put it out there. So when I think about these, that's how I kind of think about in terms of like Ethereum versus the L1 challengers like Solana or Phantom. And it doesn't mean that there's not a place for them. I'm sure that there will be applications that use them. And then when we talk about a global currency, so Bitcoin has already started, people have started backing their economies with Bitcoin, not necessarily the kind of economies that we care much about, right? Venezuela, but we are seeing that it's a financial layer that allows these failed economies to plug into and actually utilize it to provide like a foundation of value for their economy. I think we will see over the next few years more and more of these kind of lower tier economies start emerging. And I think that we will see, I mean, and this is very, I'm not the first to say this, but inflation is going to increase more and more and more. And, you know, I think we'll absolutely have the dollar. You know, I'm not talking 50, 100 years out, but probably in our lifetimes. But I think Bitcoin will be an alternative for people and even countries to use. And, you know, I think it also makes a lot of sense when we look at the future paradigm and we say this is this like web that's emerging and so many more things are going to be digital. And it's like, why would we use a payment layer that was built for not that world when we have one that actually is facilitating that world? And Ethereum is very interesting because when I was, you know, in 2017, when people were investing or trading Ethereum, they were trading back into dollars because there was nothing, you know, Ethereum was the market. But now we've built additional markets onto Ethereum, and now people trade into Ethereum, right? They buy the NFT and they sell the NFT into Ethereum, or they're interacting with DeFi. And like Ethereum has already become like the pool of value that people use. It's become a currency. And it's hard to say exactly how it will emerge, but looking at, and I'd like to speak about it later about communities, but the community that's built around Ethereum and the incredible amount of innovation that's coming in, like Ethereum as a token and a currency, it's already here. Bankless talks about it. Ethereum is hard money, and it's already here, and it's only going to increase and increase and increase.
You brought up communities since we're already there, and that's something I know you're passionate about. Is and you made this question again. This is none of these smart questions are from me. Is how are NFTs a tool for evaluating communities?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think the kind of the brand consumer relationship, or even the follower followed relationship, is being very much challenged. And the most successful companies of the last 5 years, I would say, have been really built on trying to facilitate community, whether it's WeWork or even, it's interesting, Microsoft recently partnered with a company here in Israel to start setting up Microsoft communities in different locations. And obviously the crypto paradigm was huge. Chainlink does meetups all of the time. The Ethereum community is enormous. And the thing is what it does is, instead of it just being about offering a product and trying to extract value from your customers, it's about saying, we're actually in this together, and we need your contributions, and you need to help make this possible, which is what a community is. And you're in early. So the more that you contribute now, it will be extremely financially beneficial for you to dedicate yourself to this kind of community. And crypto already provided this kind of financialization of communities with Ethereum. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen a more successful community in our capitalistic world than the Ethereum community or the Bitcoin community. The fastest growing asset possibly ever. And NFTs kind of took that and they gamified it in a lot of ways. So they said, like, now instead of just having to hold this like token that is base, it's fungible, it's meaningless, it's there's nothing that you can identify with it. Like, here's a Bored Ape, here's a CryptoPunk. Like, this is now your representation of you in the community, and there's like scarcity to it, and you can trade them almost like a sports card or a Pokemon card, and it's your digital key card. Like, now you're a part of the Bored Ape Yacht Club. And I think, when people ask me what is the value of these NFT communities, my response usually is like, what's the value of a yacht club? Like, they've actually successfully built a decentralized yacht club. And in the same way as it's virtue signaling and it's social capital on Twitter, and it's social capital when you walk around with your Bored Ape sweatshirt, and it's networking, because at this point, like, at this point, it's basically a community of people who at least all own $500,000 NFT, and who are deep down the crypto NFT rabbit hole, or it's celebrities. And all of these people, the reason the community succeeded is because these people were financially incentivized to be a part of this community. And they knew, if this community takes off, I'm going to get rich. And I think that model, where before we always had to rely on basically venture funds or angel investors to say, you're now incentivized to help me and you will get rich. But everybody, the people who are buying the product, like, we're a consumer, and we've shattered that model.
Definitely. And you touched on that as well, community. Like I mentioned earlier, like I tried CNFTs because Cardano was cheap, and it still is cheap today. And I bought this like randomly generated porcupine. I'm like, that's cool. And it was cool. I'm like, oh, that's nice. But the cool thing, even though the project never really took off, is like people are still in the Discord server, people are still chatting, and it's like some people's like, oh my God, I have a problem. This is something wrong at home, and people give some other people advice, and like you said, it's very much community driven. I mean, what do you think about the idea? And I have to play devil's advocate because I was listening to this on my bike ride yesterday, people saying that NFTs are worthless, NFTs or crypto is a Ponzi scam. Is it just what you mentioned before, that it's just people are just stuck in a traditional paradigm? Is it just that, or how do we convince these people that there is something worth it to NFTs? There is, community is important, decentralization is important.
I mean, there's certainly a lot of noise and a lot of scams and people taking advantage, because anytime there's there's hype and there's speculation. And I think it speaks to the fact people see Web 3.0, they hear Web 3.0, they want a piece of it, they want to benefit from it. And no one really knows exactly what it's going to look like. So anybody who comes and stands on the soapbox and says, here's Web 3.0, buy this, people buy. But at the same time, they're not worthless, right? I mean, people absolutely are paying for them. And I think the community itself, I certainly don't think, in the same way in 2017, most of the projects that were there are not there anymore. Most of these communities, people are buying them because they think that they will go up in value. But there are communities out there that have, and I think that as we combine with DAOs and we give actual like treasuries to be used by these communities, we'll see the power of them emerge more and more. I mean, Doodles is a very interesting one that, has recently skyrocketed in price, and they have a very successful DAO and a treasury, and you can go on their forum and all day long people are saying, hey, can I have 5 Ethereum for this new coffee brand that I'm trying to launch? Or, I'm trying to develop this offshoot project. Could you help fund me? And it's almost like this like micro loan initiative, which is an aspect of community, being able to support each other and incentivize each other. So if we talk about a Ponzi scheme in the sense of like the value is that people are coming into it, there's an element of truth to that. But that kind of, I mean, you could call religion a Ponzi scheme. You could call communities a Ponzi scheme. You could call sports teams a Ponzi scheme. But when you think about it too, is that it's not only like in a Ponzi scheme, it's only about new people coming in. But as you said, there are communities that are still gaining value that no new people are coming into, because genuinely it's about the people that are involved and their dedication to that project and making it, enriching each other and enriching each other's professional lives and social lives. So in that sense, it's very much not a Ponzi scheme.
Definitely, yes. You're totally right in that aspect. I'm going to take a little bit of an offshoot here, because it's so nice to have guests from all over around the world. And I mean, you're from Israel, and I think you are my first Israeli guest. What is the reception to crypto being like in Israel? Because I know, Israel's very famous for, high technology companies and people who do very interesting things. So is it been good? How does the government feel about it? What's the perception been there?
So as you said, it's, Israel is a startup nation. I think there's more startups per capita than anywhere else in the world. So in that sense, there's been a lot of energy, a lot of interest, tons of new investments coming in, new companies building. That's been very, very positive. On the other hand, Israel, we have a very strong socialist background and a lot of holdovers from that, some good, some bad. But in particular, the banking industry, there's no competition among the banking industry. We all feel it just from trying to have our own personal accounts with banks. It's always a nightmare. And they've basically said that you cannot put money that has touched crypto in a bank account. You cannot buy it from us. You cannot transfer back from an exchange. And the crazy thing is, and I think about this as I do work in the NFT space and in the crypto space, you can make income in Ethereum today, right? If you sell a successful NFT collection, now you have Ethereum. And like all of us, citizens and not wanting to cheat the government and not wanting to go to prison, we want to pay our taxes. But the government says you cannot pay in crypto. And not only that, you cannot transfer your crypto to a bank to be able to pay. And you cannot pay your taxes in anything but Israeli shekels.
Oh.
So you're stuck in this situation where you're like, I have this money and it's legitimate money. I want to pay, but I can't. And that's causing a lot of people to go offshore. It's causing a lot of people to look at whatever semi-legal structures that allow them to avoid that problem, or even just setting up independent companies that do the conversion and then transfer it to another company. And so in that sense, it's been very, very challenging for people. And there's been a lot of brain drain because of it, which is unfortunate.
That is unfortunate. Do you see it as a sort of a left-right government issue, or do you see it as in the banks just have way too much control policy-wise? Is it going to change in 10 years?
Yeah, I do think it will change. I think that the status quo already is changing and they're starting to take notice. And, they've held on to this narrative of cryptos for money launderers and terrorists for a long time, but it's not true. And they're starting to understand that it's not true. I think that listen, there's an Israeli startup today launching the first new bank in 50 years. So in general, and banking innovation is on its way in this country. And I think that will bring about change with how they look at crypto. But I would say it absolutely has to do with just the monopoly that the government and a few top people have on banks today in the country.
All right, let's get back on the path. So we're talking about NFTs and gamified NFTs. And again, another wonderful question that you brought up as well was the idea of is to make sure is that the power of gamified DeFi. Yes.
Yeah. Fascinating. And I have to be honest, I don't feel like an expert on it. But what we've seen is, we have this paradigm of DeFi that's come out, which allows you to take your tokens and stake your tokens and lend out to other people and earn interest. And, one of the most radical things that we've seen is where you can take your token, deposit it, earn yield on it, and take out a loan against it while it's still earning yield. And then you can take that token that you took and put it into a new protocol, earn more yield on it, and take out another token. And it's called looping, right? And you're leveraging essentially with all the risks and rewards involved. And it's been very, very profitable for people and very off limits for a lot of people because it's complicated and the protocols aren't particularly user friendly. But what we're seeing is these projects that are coming out that essentially, and to various, I would say there's various scales of gambling and DeFi, right? And projects fall somewhere along that paradigm. But the ones that fall more on the DeFi side, they essentially allow you to do exactly that, what I just described, but they build this kind of gaming package around it. So we're not calling them tokens anymore. We're calling them seeds. And you purchase a seed and you plant the seed and the seed grows and you can harvest a seed and plant the seeds that you get from that in more places. And it's just like, it provides a much easier onboarding experience for people. It taps into that gamified drive that people have. It's very interesting. I think that it holds a lot of capacity to kind of help educate people in this new realm that we're moving into. But at the same time, it definitely holds the potential to encourage people to take on too much risk because it doesn't feel real. We call there's a project called Abracadabra and they call it magic internet money. That's their token.
I know.
And and it's a very effective tool, but it certainly doesn't help the narrative of this is real money and you should be careful.
I think this is a streamlined way to encourage normal people to get in because I still find a problem. I mean, I've been in crypto since literally we started at the same time, 2017. And I still find wallets and signing in and transferring between wallets and addresses and staking and unstaking still fairly complicated. I've tried a little bit of gamified DeFi and I still feel while it's sort of visually easy to understand, I still feel like a lot of crypto is still stuck behind confirming transaction, rejecting transaction, looking through MetaMask or whatever wallet you want to use. And I mean, are we going to get to a place where it's going to be like your we're going to have to use American examples, Citibank or Chase or whatever bank people use, are we going to get to that typical standardized interface in the future?
Yeah, I expect we will. And there's a lot of really talented visionary people working at this. Ultimately, I think a lot of times when you look at that and you say, will we get there? The question is, what's the incentive to get there and what are the obstacles to get there? The incentive is enormous, right? There's whoever is able to create those crypto apps that onboard people very easily. There will be a lot of money in that. So the incentives are absolutely there. And the obstacles right now, I think that first of all, the fees are a problem, and those will start getting solved with whether we're talking Ethereum with L2s or Bitcoin with Lightning Network or even using other chains with lower fees. But I think we're also we're stuck in a paradigm where we're not used to interacting with the web in this way. And I imagine that 10, 20 years, the people who, are 14, 15, 16, 17 now, and they're doing this in their free time. They're literally creating blockchains and launching their own tokens that. It's going to be much easier for them to do. And couple with the fact that the applications will get easier, I think that where it won't be a problem.
You've said so much today that I want to ask so much, but I do want to talk about a few small things, right? Before we end off today's episode, is you mentioned you were launching your own NFT collection. Is there anything you want to plug or talk about or mention for people who are listening to today's episode?
Yeah, so we'll be launching kind of the coming out very soon. So maybe even by the time this podcast launches, we can drop a link. But for us, we're putting a lot of the ideas I've been talking about into practice. So really about creating a community. We'll be launching with a DAO, trying to trying to really build off this paradigm that like successful communities provide financialization opportunities for their community. They actually encourage each other. So like building in incentive mechanisms and social capital building around well-being and mental health. I mean, there's a lot of stress in the industry that we're in now, and as well as kind of bridging across AR and VR and giving people, their NFTs in AR and eventually full body characters that can interact in these digital spaces, and as well as providing access for new artists. So like people who own the NFT have exclusive access and early access to purchasing new collections and interacting with new exciting artists. And an interesting part too is really supporting initiatives for bringing VR to people with handicaps. One of our founders, his sister has cerebral palsy, and she uses eye gaze. Actually, she's an artist, and she creates art with her, with her eyes, and being able to put on VR sets and experience things that we can experience because we can move. But now we've opened up this world for them, and that's really, really exciting and cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. For the NFTs themselves, for people who want to, get ready for, your first NFT collection, I mean, should they be looking on Solana, Polygon, Avalanche, or should they be following on Twitter to see when this launches, or is there a Discord?
Definitely follow me on Twitter.
Okay.
That'll be the first. And it's also important for me that this is an initiative for the people who have supported me through the years as well. And so being able to bring on the people who have followed me on Twitter and interacted with me on Twitter to give them an opportunity first and then to expand outwards. That's the plan.
Very cool. So I will make sure the Twitter link will be number one on the list today. Okay. Is there anything else you want to mention about your, you said your product at Crypto Proof? You want to talk about them at all, or?
Yeah, I mean, the very, very exciting product. I think it's probably a little bit less relevant for our listeners, but I think something that's opened up for me through my work there, and we've been establishing partnerships with banks, and is that banks are excited to start interacting with crypto, and there's really they're not even that worried about the volatility. I think that the final straw for them right now is just a regulatory uncertainty, and that will shift certainly. But it will also shift by having Fireblocks is doing some very interesting work with providing basically like a whitelisted approved layer where once you've put your crypto in this network, but hasn't touched any like blacklisted addresses, and now you can lend it, you can borrow it, there's insurance, there's multi-sig storage. And I think we're going to see banks making a big entrance into the crypto space very soon.
That's very cool. And we've seen in 2021, we had investment banks and VCs and stuff, and a lot of people embrace it officially and unofficially as well. Celebrities, of course, and I definitely agree with you. I can see banks doing that here in Taiwan, where I live as well. We have a crypto regulation because a lot of people are into crypto, but like I went to my bank the other day, I'm like, yeah, so do you guys allow us to buy Bitcoin? It was like, no, don't talk about it. But here the government was like, yeah, so when I sell my crypto, tax season here is in May, we pay a 5% flat tax on crypto, so I can pay it back in Taiwanese dollars, and that's cool. But I'm looking forward to that sort of regulatory environment and everything becomes more clear. And Noam, thank you very much for being here today. I don't want to babble on too much, so I appreciate your time. And your NFT project launching sometime this week, I would imagine, like you said, when we add the podcast. That's cool. So keep an eye out on your Twitter. Twitter is how I found you as well. I mean, besides, doing a bit of research this week, is there any other place people should be following you?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely follow me on Medium. That's where most of my thought leadership writings go. And any other platforms that I'm interacting with, I'm always reposting on Twitter. So
Okay.
That's a good kind of centralization point for anyone looking at what I'm thinking about. And honestly, reach out to me. I love hearing from people. I love answering questions or helping people on board.
And I can very much verify that because I had looked through a lot of your Twitter for about a good 30 minutes or so, reading what people were writing. Most people don't spend a lot of time replying to people on Twitter, but you spend a fair amount of time doing that, which is very cool. So you're definitely the person to talk about when it comes to NFTs. And when we're recording the video for this, you guys can see I've taken a video capture of Noam's Twitter profile. You can see all the like cool art that's on his Twitter account. If you have questions, you should definitely head on, follow him on Twitter first, and drop a question. As busy as his schedule is, I'm sure he'll find time to answer them.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and I wish you a lot of success with this podcast. I think you're asking the right questions and really bringing interesting people and perspectives. So
I'm very glad you are like the perfect person to start off 2022 with. And hopefully we can get you on like another time. I would imagine probably middle of the year, or maybe a few months after your NFT project launches. I'd love to talk more about DAOs, especially because you mentioned DAOs, but I think that would be a whole nother 40-minute episode that we dive into that stuff. So I'm looking forward to actually to seeing how things go this week, and joining myself and seeing. So I appreciate it, and talk to you in a few months.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.